We are bringing people in for this show, though. We have guests from all over the
Okay.
place that we're bringing in to Montreal to film.
Because that's what I was gonna say is everyone coming into Montreal because
Yeah.
if it's a live show and there's a set and
Yeah,
everything.
which I find kind of sucks because a lot of these people, not only have they never been to Montreal before, but they've never even been to Canada before.
Okay.
And we're flying them in for like 24 hours to spend a night like off to Cary,
Oh,
which
out of all
that's
the
their-
places in the city, it's
that's
like,
what they think Montreal's going to be.
dude, that area. I remember when someone like, you want to go do a meeting or whatever, something, they're like,
Yeah.
3 o'clock to carry? No,
No.
no way.
No. I feel
I
bad.
better make a lot of money. If you're gonna send me to 3 o'clock to carry,
Yeah.
there has to be a fucking
Yeah.
paycheck that is so worth it to go there. Or else
Yeah.
I am not stepping foot at 9 a.m. on the carry or 3 p.m. on the carry.
No, because then you're there for 4
You're
hours.
there till like 10 p.m.
Even after episodes, they'll always be like, "So what's there to do around here?" You know, it's like 9:30. I'm like, "You can hit the julep. we got a special orange juice. That's all I can offer you."
Tyler, I just want to say thank you so much, man, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I've watched some of the stuff that you've done. You know, mutual friend with Dan Bano, and he called me and he's like, "Dude, you got to get Tyler on." And he's like, "You're gonna learn all kinds of shit with Tyler. Like, you got to ask him and see what the fuck is going on." So I'm gonna say thank you to Dan for
Thank
the
you,
suggestion. But I'm really looking forward to it because you have so many different things that you're working on, and they're so funny, some of them.
Thank you.
And they're fucking great, and the quality of it is so good that I wanted to really get to know you and see how this all started and just like, what are you up to? You know what I mean?
Well, thank you. Beautiful introduction. Yeah, I guess I'll start with like what I'm up to right now, which is my main thing, like that takes up the majority of my attention and time is I host, produce, write, all around like create a show called A Very Serious Show,
Yeah.
which is a comedy talk show exclusively on an adult website.
Manyvids, right?
Manyvids.
Yeah.
Shout out Manyvids. I love Manyvids. Like I was at first when they actually approached me about this project and they're branching into safe for work content. They want to build like just a video platform where
Yeah.
everything could coexist alongside one another. And at first I was like pretty skeptical because I was like, you know, I'm a straight white guy comedian. I don't want to be like showing up where I'm not invited. But it's really turned into, they sold me on it, and they were true to their word, where it's turned into this like awesome platform where adult creators come on and show their silly side and talk in depth. And we have like long, deep conversations. And
Well, dude, I'm watching, and you know, you have all these different like adult stars that are coming in, and I'm like, how is he getting these guests? You know, like that was like
that's
there's
just Manyvids.
That's
That's
what I'm
not
saying.
me.
No, but that's always like, there's got to be something here. And then when I saw the Manyvids combo and kind of that collaboration, I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Like, you ended up kind of tapping into this world in a different way.
Yeah, and I think it's cool to show that, you know, they're not coming to put anything in themselves or do anything with anyone other than like clown around. It's like it's a really low stakes, fun, relaxed environment that I think we've built there. And it's still like every episode I'm making tweaks, I'm figuring stuff out, things go wrong, like there's always stuff to deal with. But it's a really fun process. It's been really like fulfilling and rewarding because, you know, like it's growing, it's expanding, we're getting bigger guests, we're getting more views, like that kind of traction's exciting. And at the same time, creatively, it's like a pretty fun challenge to keep it fresh and keep it like, I don't think I've figured it out yet. I don't know if someone's like, what do you do on the show? I don't know yet.
Well, you feed off them very well. Like, you do such a great job of kind of like making everyone feel comfortable to go to areas that, you know, like they still got to talk about, right? And you have some funny questions that make everyone kind of loosen up and just kind of get into the show. So I've watched a few episodes and I was fucking dying, man, on some of the stuff.
Yeah, I think a big bonus for me is that I'm like not a porn guy. I don't know the first thing about like any of these
Perfect guy
people,
to have as a host.
They're dropping terms I've never heard of before, so I'm always just like this buffoon who's never heard of anything, which I think adds to the show. That's
the flavor, man.
I'm genuinely curious. I'm learning here.
And so, okay, when you got how did this partnership even start? Was it you reaching out to someone or someone reached out to you?
No, they reached out to me. They're looking to produce a lot more safe for work content. They want to get into cooking and comedy and music and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I was kind of the first. I know the guy who's head of production. I used to do another YouTube channel with him years ago. I don't know if you've heard of Epic Mealtime.
Yeah, Dan used to talk about this all the time.
So I did that with this guy. He's now in a position of head of content at Manyvids and is looking to build their library. And I was one of the first people to get a call. And yeah, it's been awesome ever since. I'm very grateful that they came to me and kind of gave me carte blanche to like, they knew they wanted a show that features adult stars in like a talk show kind of format, but everything else was really like, make the show you want to make.
Holy shit. So you get approached by these guys to say, make a show you want to make. What did you start doing like at that point? Like, because now it's kind of like there's a blessing of having carte blanche.
Yeah.
But it's a fucking like, oh my God, I got to think of everything too. Like,
yeah. So funny story. My original concept, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say this, but I will. We didn't do it. So my original concept was a show called Slumber Party. And I wanted it to be like in sleeping bags on the floor and we play games and do like prank calls and stuff, make it like real slumber party vibes. And I had filmed an intro, I had made graphics, I had designed, like, that's why the set was full of pillows and blankets and stuff. And then like 3 weeks before we launch, like we film our pilot, Manyvids brass, like the higher up was like, wait a second, we're an adult website. You can't be like, you know, there's a lot of negative
connotation to
that like fetishizing younger stuff is not kosher. And they told me this, and at first I was like, well, that sucks that I need to like rebuild, but also glad I'm working with you guys who catch that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I would have just thought it's a joke, you know what I mean, or whatever, you know.
So yeah, we quickly pivoted from Slumber Party to a very serious show, and it kind of went from a slumber party vibe to like, it's just gonna be silly.
Yeah.
And I think it worked. You know, you got to roll with the punches sometimes, and
but it's really cool the way it's done, because like you said, you have these adult stars that are coming on, but then you mix it with comedy, and then you're mixing it with like this set that everyone looks like it's just a fun set to be on. Where is the set? Is it in Montreal?
Yeah, it's like off near like Décarie and Namur.
Okay,
kinda.
Because I thought Dan was telling me at one point you were filming in Miami or in LA.
I was filming other stuff in LA. Yeah.
Okay. I thought this show was filmed in LA.
Oh,
and
no,
you were coming back and forth.
No, but I filmed other shows in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
So awesome. So like, you get into this gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, we are bringing people in for this show, though. We have guests from all over the place that we're bringing in to Montreal to film.
Because that's what I was going to say, is everyone coming into Montreal, because if it's a live show and there's a set and everything.
Which I find kind of sucks, because a lot of these people, not only have they never been to Montreal before, but they've never even been to Canada before.
Okay.
And we're flying them in for like 24 hours to spend a night like off Décarie. Which
out of all the places in the city, it's
that's
like,
what they think Montreal's going to be.
Dude, that area, I remember when someone like, you want to go do a meeting or whatever, something, they're like, 3 o'clock Décarie? No way.
No.
I better make a lot of money. If you're going to send me to 3 o'clock Décarie, there has to be a fucking paycheck that is so worth it to go there, or else I am not stepping foot at 9 a.m. on Décarie or 3 p.m. on Décarie.
No, because then you're there for 4 hours.
You're there till like 10 p.m.
Even after episodes, they'll always be like, so what's there to do around here? You know, it's like 9:30. I'm like, you can hit the julep. we got a special orange juice. That's all I can offer you.
I know, dude. Out of all the places, the areas in the city. Well, but that's like kind of porn capital, though.
Yeah, I think so. We're right near all the other players there.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're not in the same building or same company at all. Because I know whenever I say we're like near Namur, we're off Décarie, everyone assumes it's that other company. Yeah. I'm glad I'm at the Manyvids building, though.
Good, man. So we have Manyvids, but you have like a few pages right now. So there's the very serious show, but then there's an art page. Then there's kind of like just another page, like Dr. Lemco.
Yeah,
like
I could run you through all the shit I do.
Yeah, dude. Man, because there's so. That's why I was like, when I get Tyler in the show, he's got to help me clarify what the fuck is going on.
This might help me make it make sense too.
This is your suspect board.
Yeah, you got any Post-it notes or? So with Manyvids, I do a very serious show, and we just recently, like 3 months ago, launched Busty's Comedy Club. So we're doing stand-up comedy, and like we built an actual comedy club in their office.
Okay, I have a comedian for you.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Who's Tom Murphy?
Tom Murphy. I've heard that name.
Okay,
I think I know this character.
Yeah, dude, he's fucking funny.
Okay,
I just had him on actually. Like I interviewed him. He's a funny guy, man. Like his set's pretty good. Like he's working on building a bigger set.
Cool. Would love
to
have him.
Definitely, like I'll put you in contact with him. He's fucking great.
So yeah, we're doing the comedy club. I did about a year of stand up before the pandemic. And I wish I had more time to do more of it because I love doing it. But at least I have like a monthly
So
place now.
okay, so now when you did stand up for the first time, I've always wanted to try stand up, right? How fucking like were you nervous? Were you like buzzing a bit? Like, cause it, I don't know. I'm just curious. Like, what were your thoughts when you decided I'm gonna try stand up?
I think it takes, there's like different types of nervous, I think. I wasn't feeling like, oh my God, I hope this doesn't go bad or like my heart's pounding. But when you do get up there, you start to like, when you get good at anything, it slows down.
Yeah.
So it feels very overwhelming at first. It's very fast and you're feeling that like trying to get everything out and remember everything. And there's just a lot to like keep track of, I found at first.
Yeah.
But like anything, the more you do it and the more reps you get, the easier it gets. And I like what I'd like to get to is a point where I'm not like, let me rephrase. My favorite thing about stand up is writing a bit and tweaking it and seeing if it works and developing it and then having like a planned written joke to deliver.
Yeah.
But I think moving forward, my intention is to try, as much as I love that, my intention is to try and not do that anymore.
Okay.
And just get up with nothing and try and be funny.
And like really improv it, like.
Because I think for work, at least, that's the muscle I need to exercise more, is improv or talking to people, doing crowd work, just making something come from nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the skill I think I need to develop more. So I want to move away from the thing I love more.
So it's funny, you go from being, like prepared and it's still somewhat nerve-wracking, well, in a good way, to completely like not unprepared, but prepared for the unknown.
Yeah, dude, that's kind of been like the overarching lesson for me of 2023, I think.
Prepare for the unknown.
Not even, it's don't prepare for the unknown, just show up and have fun.
Okay.
Is I find I was spending so much time prepping and writing and planning and rehearsing for all these, we'll get into all the different things I do, but I spend so much time like thinking about it and almost to a degree of like dwelling on it.
Paralysis by analysis type scenario?
Yeah, or not even so much paralysis, just like overworking, putting
Okay.
more into it than it needs and being over prepared and over rehearsed and like
It's funny
it's
you
less
say that.
natural that way.
It's so true. Like I find even like when it comes from work perspective or even in the show, when I first started, I remember I used to really like worry, about a lot of things, like just the setups and preparing for the guests and all that stuff. And now it's kind of like, you know what? Let the conversation go where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And it'll feel natural. And when you're stuck, that's where you're working a muscle.
Yeah,
like you're
exactly.
working a muscle.
That's the good part.
That's the part where
That's
at the
the
end of it, you're like,
exercise.
man, I didn't know where we were going to go. And then it went there and it was amazing after, I would have never thought it would have went there.
Exactly. And you could do like, I'm sure you do your research and you know who you're talking to. But like when the show first started, I went in with like my list of questions.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a formal interview.
Yeah.
Almost like for a job versus a conversation.
And when you're in that scene, you're the interviewer, if someone's answering, you want to be paying attention and like part of this discussion, not thinking about how do I segue this to this question, then how do I lead this here?
How do you actually listen?
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta
Yeah.
listen to the person. I
Yeah.
realized that was a part that is the hardest is when you first start because you're so nervous about thinking. I feel like, I don't know if it's a question if you feel this way, with the show at the beginning, like you were saying, that you feel like you're performing a bit in a sense where you're kind of like, how do I make sure that I perform well,
Yeah.
And whereas you perform well if you actually listen
Yeah.
and build off each other versus kind of like coming in and like, I need to make sure I ask these things.
And if you're just having fun.
Yeah.
Like if you're having a good time, it's going to be a good episode.
It's natural.
And the same goes for my show. Same goes for doing stand-up, I think. If you're just reciting,
Yeah.
then it's not natural. But if you're just like, show up and have fun.
But so now
Goes well.
you were saying you have the show.
So I have the show. I have the stand-up thing. I do a bit of stand-up. And I'm an artist. I paint. I do all that fun stuff.
Dude, some of this stuff is fucking hilarious,
thank
man.
you.
It's the latest one with Adam Sandler on the guitar, and you just
man,
started like
thanks.
that was awesome. Like I'm just like, and then I keep on watching. I'm like, where the fuck does he come out with these ideas? Like, how does some of the work just happen? And like you're like, I'm gonna go down.
Weed.
Weed,
yeah,
our best friend.
Yeah, weed'll do it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I hate when people say that they're not creative.
I know.
Because I think that's not like every human being is. It's again, it's a muscle to like exercise more. So I think that like my approach to ideas, not to sound too pretentious about this,
You know how I am.
all right, my approach to ideas is like they're not yours, they're not mine. They all just exist out there, and we're all just like antennas picking up signals.
Yeah.
So there's an infinite amount of ideas out there. It's a matter of like executing it and doing it your special, unique way. But yeah, like I don't understand anyone that's ever like struggled with coming up with ideas. All you have to do is like turn your screens off and think for a minute. And you'll come up with something.
Dude,
your brain will do it.
If you would just like, I was telling about that trip that I did recently, right?
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was a fucking great trip. But it was like, I purposely made sure that I really kind of like, as much as I possibly can, disconnect and let my brain run wild. Like just let it run wild, because I never have the time to let it run wild. There's always something pulling at you, you know, and there's good things, you know, there's family. Okay, great. Like I want to take care of my, oh, that's great. But you know, when you're working on this, you're working on that. And even when you think you have time alone, you don't really have time alone. You know, it's like your pocket's fucking buzzing.
For sure.
You know, you have to you have the thought process of, you know, this tomorrow needs to get done or whatever. But on that trip, I was just like, I know I have nothing to do for 5 days.
Yeah.
And just hang out. I was sitting when I first got there, I sat down on Venice Beach. And I was just sitting on the sand. I had my feet in the sand. And I just watched surfers for like 2 hours.
Nice.
Literally. I just smoked a J. And I watched surfers for like 2 hours, and I was thinking to myself, how do I get more surfing in my life?
Cool.
You know, like not surfing itself, but how do I get that feel? Because I would see these guys, man, and I'm like, they look like there's nothing else in the world right now.
Yeah.
That they'd rather be doing than just surfing and really enjoying their Friday 11 a.m. It's not like it was, you know, Saturday and it's like they're here. This is like, it's still part of the week, you know?
Yeah, but that's their thing.
That's their thing. It's like, this is like religious for them, you know?
It's so funny you say that. I've been really like double clicking on that concept recently. The idea of like, for me, it's painting, and I'm sure everyone has their thing. Other people, it's surfing or making music or writing or whatever. But when you're zoned in and you're like in the zone, in the flow state or whatever it is, that's prayer. That's meditation. That's a connection to a higher spirit or thing or whatever, however you define it. But like, that's so good for your mind, your soul, your everything.
Definitely.
Limiting distractions. And that's what I'm like, we're talking about all these projects and things I'm working on, but like that concept of, I like to call it like creative wellness.
Yeah.
That's like my number one thing. I'm trying to figure out ways to make that more integrated into my like career and the content that I produce. But that's like the direction I want to head in, is spreading that gospel kind of.
100%, dude. Like I am so focused now in my life of what real value, and when I mean value, like not money, like real value of like enjoyment in life is this bringing to me. So it's like this podcast for me is, you know, it's great. I'm happy the guests have a great time, but I genuinely fucking like doing it, you know? So it's like, I have fun no matter what the situation is. And the moment I realized I re-entered that back into my life, because I noticed at one point it was just like, you're working and even if you're working on something you like, I found the mentality going in was working not for enjoyment, but maybe working for other reasons. And then when you finally get back to just working for enjoyment and saying I'm doing something I actually really like, regardless of whatever comes out of it, there's an element of like, wow, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm back to who I'm like in that hour, whatever it is with a guest here, an hour and a half. It's like, and that's my surfing, you know?
For sure. And you find that there's always like a balance where like half the time it's like that relief. It's that place to go feel like fulfilled and good and creative and, you know, full of life. Yeah. For real. It like gives you life. But then there's also something to like, once it becomes something you have to do, it gets tougher.
It's so
funny.
So
silly.
It's so funny you say that, because I remember at one point I was telling Chris, I was like, you know, for the podcast, you start realizing the amount of work that really goes into it to do it well, like to do it the way you envision it and to do it better and to get better. And it becomes this never-ending cycle of how do I get better at doing this?
Because there's no finish line.
There's never a finish line, right? Like every time you get to a level where you feel like you did really well on this, it's like, okay, well now that's the new plateau. Like
and if ever you feel comfortable, like something's wrong,
you want to push more.
Yeah.
And in one way, it's amazing that it feels like that because that means you give a shit. But at times, it could be heavy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, can I just be comfortable for like an hour?
Yeah.
Because I'm never comfortable with the idea of it's here. It's like, okay, well, how do I get better at asking questions? Or how do I get better at
or just sitting in the sand sometimes?
Yeah, just sitting in the sand.
Yeah.
Like, just how the fuck do I just chill the fuck out and enjoy it?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally, that resonates. Like I often compare like with when it comes to work, because I'm the same. I love what I do. Like everything I do, I'm super passionate about. I enjoy. I have fun. I feel good about. My only real problem in life is the abundance of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Like I just get burnt out. I get worn out. I get tired because I often compare myself to like a dog. If you leave the food out, it's just going to keep eating the food. And I'm that way with work. To the point where like I need to schedule alone time and downtime and not just like watching Netflix time, but like shut everything off and bring a notepad with me kind of time.
Well, that's what this trip really did. Like I brought a journal with me and I remember sitting on the beach, man, like watching these guys. I was writing and I saw this post recently. I was talking about that. Like, people journal, but sometimes they journal thinking like someone else is going to read it.
Yeah.
So they don't write it the way they're actually thinking. They're writing it thinking like, how am I going to read this in a year from now or something like that?
Yeah.
And how is someone going to, if someone does read this, how would they think if I'm a psychopath or whatever? And I told myself, you're just going to write whatever the fuck it is that's coming out. There is no third person. There's just you in this moment. And you're kind of like, when the pen starts hitting the paper, it doesn't stop.
Yeah, it's just a faucet.
It's just
a turn on and off. Yeah.
And I'm like, writing another page. I'm like, holy shit. Like I hadn't journaled like this in a long time. Because I like to journal. I've been journaling since like 2015, 2016. Yeah. And I always kind of had a consistency to it. But then at a certain point, I noticed that too. It's like, who am I writing for now? Am I writing as a habit? Or am I writing because I need to get this out of my head?
Yeah. To put it down a bit.
Yeah, I just got to put it down. Like I just got to formulate it. Because sometimes the thoughts are just going in and out that it's like, what am I really saying,
Yeah.
And when you write it down, it forces you to somewhat be coherent in the thought.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I just let go, and it felt so good, man, to just let go.
Oh, 1,000%. And you find there's a benefit to like actually physically writing it over typing?
So. For me, right? Yeah. Everyone has their thing. Like some people like audiobooks. Like I'm not a fan of audio. I like reading a book.
Pay attention.
I'm like, what's that? I'm like a fucking squirrel, dude.
Dude, I watched a 12-minute video like 6 times today trying to get through it, forgetting to finish.
Dude, dude, 100%. Like I cannot do a whole book audio. Where I have some friends that can't even turn 3 pages. And for me, writing physically, I feel like it just forces me to think a little more. And I find like typing it sometimes you kind of, okay, erase, just get rid of it, And this is like you're not erasing, like you wrote it down. Like,
true.
Move on. You're going to have to scratch a whole page. Fuck it. Just keep going and just let it flow.
Yeah, that's a good rule. I like that. I'll do this practice where not often. I'll try to do it like once a week. Where on top of journaling, I'll just bring a notepad with me and sit in silence, and I'll close my eyes. And the way I kind of envision ideas, we were talking ideas before, is like those like conveyor belts, like where you get your luggage after a flight or something. And I envision like boxes that I could take a box, open it, and look inside. And there's going to be something in there. Your imagination's not going to have nothing.
Usually it's not empty.
It's not going to be empty. It's something. And you could use your judgment to judge if that's something worth investigating or looking deeper into, or if you want to close the box and put it back and choose another one. And I find whether it's 30 seconds or sometimes 30 minutes, eventually a really good idea shows up and I write that down and then go back to the conveyor belt.
See, I like that you look at it for the idea of like an influx of ideas to come to you.
Yeah, I'm mining with it.
And Dan actually told me something a long time ago, and I always use that whenever I meditate. Like, he's like, he pictures himself, or he said something along these lines. Maybe I started interpreting it my own way, but I picture myself in this like canoe, and I'm on this like water, this bed of water, whatever it is. I don't know if it's a lake or a river or anything like that. And whatever thought comes to my head when I really want to meditate and just chill out, it's like whatever shows up, I take it. I literally physically put it in my head and I put it in a canoe and I'm like, push it down.
Yeah.
I need to let go of like all the shit thoughts that are coming into my head from work, from, I don't know, stress, with a family, all that stuff. And then the moment all those thoughts go down the river, the stream, or whatever it is, it's like now I'm finally in a place where now I can accept ideas.
Yeah.
Like now I'm ready to
Oh, for
accept
sure.
what the ideas are, because I feel like all the garbage is out.
Interesting.
And I
yeah.
have some time to like not tarnish
Yeah.
whatever comes my way, but more of a, okay, I'm ready to accept whatever idea is coming in.
Yeah.
I'm really like, I'm leveled now.
1,000%. It's kind of the stretching before the workout. You have to like let your brain simmer down
Yeah.
and calm down, and in order for it to like really listen properly.
Yeah, like a state of accepting
Yeah.
right now
For me,
versus building like this wall. And it's like, is this idea going to crash through the wall that I
Yeah.
kind of built, you know?
For me, the first like minute of every meditation is always like, why don't you do this more often?
Oh, dude.
It's that guilt feeling.
Yeah. The guilt is the first one. Hey, dude, why don't you do
Yeah,
this?
you actually love it here.
Yeah.
Why do you have to force yourself to do this?
Shame shows up every time.
Yeah.
So I decided to start a porn show.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, man. So, there's the show. Sorry, we were talking about art and how you got into art, though.
Okay, so about maybe like 5 years ago, just as something to do after work to like de-stress.
Yeah.
I figured like rather than go surf, I'm gonna just put some paint on some canvas. Never been like a big artsy guy before, and yeah, I found it really therapeutically helpful. And then I posted a couple things on Instagram, and people were like, "Where can I buy one?" And it grew into I've sold like 60 or 70 paintings now.
Wow.
Which was all in the first like 3 years. I've actually stopped selling anything or publishing a lot.
So, how did you feel when someone said, "I'm gonna buy your art"?
It's like immediate imposter syndrome, obviously,
sure.
because you're like, but I'm not an artist. Why are they gonna? Yeah. I had a friend one time send me a script that he wrote for a movie, and I remember him emailing me, and the final line was like, "Keep in mind, I'm not a screenwriter."
Yeah, because
like,
you always have to feel like we have to state these
Yeah,
things.
like, bro, you just sent me the movie you wrote. You're a screenwriter.
You wrote it.
Yeah.
You are one.
So there's obviously that, like, there's like a feeling of guilt. Like, I can't take people's money for these silly little drawings that I do to feel better.
Yeah.
But yeah, over time, like, if there's a demand, then there's nothing wrong with monetizing something you spend time on.
I felt so weird with stuff like that. I've always felt like, and I think that's a lot of artists feel that way, of just like, I did this, and it's like, you had so much fun doing it that someone's gonna give you money for it, and you're like, or you kind of devalue it,
Yeah, or it like means something, and you're like, well, I know this is like a shitty drawing on a piece of paper that isn't worth anything to anyone else, but for me, this is like a $500 drawing. My advice to like artists out there, not that I'm anyone to give advice, but it's like, yeah, maybe it's just worth $500.
Yeah, but it's such a weird thing, because we always feel like, I find like even when I was playing in a band, and it's like you feel bad at the beginning, like getting people to pay tickets sometimes to come to the show or to buy your albums and T-shirts, and you're like, but I don't think any other big band really says, "Oh no, don't buy my T-shirt or buy my album." But it's kind of like that way to cross the line, where even with this show, like I had people that wanted to put ads, and at the beginning, I felt. Really? And now it's like, okay, well, if I do put an ad, it has to be an ad that I feel is relevant.
Right.
Like, I don't want to just put an ad. But, I mean, some people don't give a shit, and they'll just take an ad. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But is that element of, like, guilt of, like, doing something like that,
I totally get that, 1,000%.
It's like, so weird, because no one would, if it was a business thing and not art, you wouldn't say this. You'd say, you're an idiot, go take the fucking ad.
Yeah. I think that's one of the coolest things about art is the valuing it.
Yeah,
because that's the whole point of it. It's like, you go to a museum and there's these canvases that are $30,000, and it's like a little red square, and it like that pisses a lot of people off. I think I've brought friends to the museum who are like, I don't get this shit, and to me, I'm always like, that's some of the most impressive stuff, because like the work itself isn't anything to write home about, but like someone made this and sold this for $50K. That's fucking awesome,
dude. I was in Spain. And I was in this art gallery, and it was a bunch of potatoes. Like, it was literally just potatoes.
Yeah.
And what they did was they had put, like something to like for electricity. Just like, that's it. It looked like a science project.
Yeah.
Right? It looked like a grade 3 science project. And at first, we looked at it, my girlfriend and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? But then you're like, you know, what the fuck is this guy has his work in a big art
Yeah.
gallery. He's doing something right.
Yeah.
He's doing something right. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the
Yeah.
piece, but there's something here that maybe I just don't get. And maybe
Or kudos
I'm
to that person for the whatever hustle and connections they made in
whatever
their
it is.
life, whatever they did, whatever they pulled off to be in there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I love when people are like, I could have done that. And it's like, yeah, you didn't though.
dude.
The only thing is you didn't.
I always, I don't know if you have the same feeling, but I love hearing people that say I could have done that, but don't do anything.
Yeah.
Ever. Like it's not like, oh, I could have done that, but then they do all these other things. They say that I could have done that for everything, but never do anything.
And most people can do most things.
Yeah.
It's the executing and the getting it out there.
And the
It's
commitment.
hard
I find
part,
like
the
that
commitment.
consistency. Like
Yeah.
for you now doing this show and doing the artwork, how do you find, and then there's other stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Like that, like,
You know what's funny actually? So I was working not this past summer, the summer before, so a year and a half ago now, I was working at a startup in like May as a creative director.
Okay.
And the startup folded and I got like a little bit of a severance package. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you know what? I'm young enough. I've got the opportunity now. I've got a little bit of a runway. I'm going to give art like a serious go.
Yeah.
I've always been a content guy. I've always made stuff. I've always been in production and comedy. And I really want to take art seriously and give it like a real, college try. And I'm going to take it seriously and I'm going to be all about it. And then literally the next day, Manyvids called and was like, do you want to make whatever show you want? And I was like, fuck, yeah, I do.
dude, you have to take that opportunity.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, for sure. And like, I'm finding time to do the art. I just found it funny that like the minute I had decided like I'm gonna pivot and I'm gonna do something else, my dream opportunity from the previous thing shows up at the door.
But it's kind of, it always works out that way.
Exactly. As soon like the minute I dreamed of this for a decade, and the minute I didn't want it anymore, they're like, "Do you want this?"
Dude, it's almost like gambling. Like the way it works, it's like it's gonna make you lose for so many years.
Yeah.
And then it just makes you win when you're about to give up.
Yeah.
And you're like, not give up, or at least just take a sidestep and like, and then all of a sudden, ding, 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 and then
Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
fuck, you got
The
me again. I
universe
gotta go back,
knows.
man. I gotta come back.
Yeah.
And but it's so cool the trajectory of it, like and kind of like the roadmap of what you were telling me, because it seemed like there was all these things that built up to it and these attempts at other things. Is it that these other things weren't working out, or they worked out and kind of closed up, and then like what was the kind of that trajectory of where it led you to that?
I've got a 15-year career in entertainment
Okay.
now, so it's kind of like,
It was Epic Meal your first,
yeah, pretty much.
and how did you get into that? Like, what made you get into
That was
that
just
one?
friends being bored.
It's so funny. It's always the same
Yeah,
story.
that was
Stoners wanting to eat.
Yeah, that came about because of Dollard. That's why we were just stoned and bored. Yeah.
That's the West Island.
Yeah.
Time. It's funny. The East End. I grew up in the East End and the West Island. It's the same thing, just on different sides
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
island. You don't know what to do. We started a band and we just got stoned. You know what I mean? And it was like,
Exactly.
okay, let's have fun.
So yeah, that I was like in school at the time, and yeah, long story short, I ended up like having to go to LA and live there for a while.
You
and do
can't
the
say a
whole
long
YouTube
story
thing.
short, going from Dollard getting stoned to LA. There's a
Dude,
fucking piece missing.
I
there,
remember
dude.
there was one time we got brought out, myself and two of the other guys, to film. You ever heard of the Gymkhana videos?
No.
It's this. So Ken Block, R.I.P., used to do.
R.I.P.
Yeah,
I was like, wait,
he's like a
what?
stunt driver.
Yeah, okay. Oh,
and
shit.
he used to do these like crazy drifting videos.
Okay.
They were they would get millions and millions and millions of views. He also owned DC shoes and the
Okay.
DC brand.
Yeah.
So long story short, not that short, he flies us out to be in one of those Gymkhana videos. He wants to like do donuts around us in a kitchen. And we're like, all right, cool. So he puts us in
That's
this
like a
fancy
perfect
hotel.
story to tell a bunch of stoners eating food.
Yeah.
Of course we'll do it.
Yeah. So he puts us in this fancy hotel, and then our agent at the time wanted to like, I think, impress us a little bit. So he, rather than get us like a rental car, got us this like unreleased Aston Martin to drive around in.
Holy shit.
And then Ken Block, after being in his video, he was like, yeah, go by the DC store tomorrow and grab whatever you want. So we go in, we're like all in our early 20s, never been to LA before, like this is crazy. And we're driving on Sunset Boulevard in our Aston Martin with bags full of free stuff from the DC store. And I look back at the guys and I'm like, you realize we're all going back to our parents' basements in Dollar.
Yeah, I was about to say
tomorrow.
that. What a mindfuck that
Yeah.
must have been of like being in LA on Sunset, this car, this shopping, And then you're on a flight back home.
24 hours later, we all lived in our parents' basements at the time.
How did that even start though? Like the whole idea of like, because you had mentioned agent got flown to LA. Like a lot of people start a lot of shit and they don't have agents. They're not getting flown to LA. So what was different about you guys at the time? You think?
I think
that
it
got
was,
you noticed.
I think first and foremost, I think it was just like early in the YouTube world.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was YouTubers absolutely, but we were kind of the first like show. We were kind of the first to like have a formatted weekly comeback, and you know what to expect, and there's going to be changes and there's going to be some differentiators, but like overall we were a formatted weekly show, and that didn't really exist so much on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. So it was like that consistency where people got used to it too, right?
Yeah, and I think that really contributed to it like popping off like that. And by week 4 or 5 of doing it, we were like consistently hitting 1 million views, and then
Wow.
the agents started calling and people wanting to.
And what year was this?
2011.
Okay, so yeah, this is like when it
early
was-
2011, because I think we put the first one out in late 2010,
Wow. But what made you want to do that in the first place?
like the first video.
Yeah, like the first video. Like
We did rap videos, we did some video game videos. We were like just making stuff at the
yeah,
time.
just testing shit out.
Yeah, we were just a bunch of buddies making content like for fun, and then that one worked. It actually, we filmed it in like July, and it sat on a computer making small edits to it until we released it in October.
Oh shit.
So like that was just one of the projects.
Did it almost not get released at that point? Like were people kind of hesitant about it?
No, I think once we put it out, we were ready to put it out. We had made like there was some like handshake deal we made where we were filming a music video for some guy who had like I forget the name of it, but it was like a Hollywood tabloid kind of website.
Okay, like a National Enquirer type vibe.
Something like that. One of those like shady headline websites. But it got views, and he was like, if you film me a music video for me and my band, I'll post your video and be like, check out this crazy sandwich or whatever it was. And yeah, that worked. And then the second one we did was like very local to Montreal. We did like a poutine steamy type thing. So after the first one did all right, the second one locally became like a big deal. All the local papers and everything started picking it up. And then luckily, I think week 4 or 5 was Thanksgiving, and we did the like bird and the bird and the bird and the bird and the pig deal. And then that one like blew up even more than the others. And from then on out, it was just like
a trajectory. It blew up.
Yeah, and it was just the perfect time for it. I think perfect time on YouTube, perfect time for like a show and content creators building a structured show. Perfect time for bacon, as silly as that sounds. We rode that bacon wave hard, I think, or we created it. But
dude, what's crazy is that like it was just a bunch of guys that had this idea. Like it stemmed from that, and then and I always love hearing shit like that, because that's kind of like I was always hoping like the band would be like that, like a bunch of guys that got together, wrote a song, and the song would make it one day or whatever it is.
Totally. And you never know. You gotta just keep like throwing darts and hope for a bullseye.
Yeah, but in the same time, you also recognize like how much fun you're having with those guys in that period. Like I was talking with some of the guys earlier, like one of the guys that was on a previous episode, he recorded the album with us, you know, like he that was like one of his first recording sessions, like as a producer.
Cool.
And it was us, our first EP that we were putting together, and we all kind of like became like a family almost.
Yeah.
3 months of just working together constantly and every day. And you just like, you don't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah, there's like a teamwork element to it. You want to not only work hard and succeed for yourself, but for like the guy on your left and your right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had that. I think that was a huge reason why it was so successful, because it wasn't a show about food. It was a show about like a group of friends that people would watch and be like, I wish I was a part of that.
Yeah, I would love to be having a meal with these guys or just hanging out with these guys.
Truthfully, like the number one reason I left after 3 years was like it wasn't fun at that point.
I was going to say, what happened? Like, and not to bring up old stories or whatever, but I mean, a project is so fun. And even same thing, I felt the exact same way with my band. I was like, I'm not having fun anymore.
Yeah, so you just got to know when.
Yeah, it was like my time to kind of like, maybe it's my time to step away from this, you know? But for you guys, it was the same thing?
Other people have other stories. I'm grateful that like I just decided to leave. Some other people had some messier exits.
Okay.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, people were leaving. I was writing them all. So like there's really only so many ways you can yell bacon strips, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's the same shit over and over. like there wasn't much interest in evolving or like trying other new stuff. Long story short, I was just like, there's nothing for me here. Like
You didn't feel like the creativeness was coming like
yeah, there was
stale or
I wasn't able to be as creative as I wanted, and I also didn't have the freedom to like work on projects that I thought would have worked, and there just wasn't a lot of opportunity there. It was a very controlled environment, which is a big reason why a lot of the people ended up leaving.
okay. And then when that ended, did you have like to come back to reality for a bit in a sense of
A little bit. I remember having a moment. The only time I ever like regret. No, I didn't. I've never regretted leaving, but I remember having a moment like because I quit unexpectedly. I like it was a phone call that didn't go well, and I was like, you know what, I'm
no,
done.
you pulled it by phone.
Yeah.
You
Well, we were
bastard.
on the phone just
Okay.
talking about like an
I'm
upcoming
not coming
trip,
in no more. I'm done.
and yeah, a phone call went south, and I was like, fuck this. And then I think a day or two later, they were at like some YouTube award show, and Tim and Eric, who I'm like a huge fan of, were there like talking to them and saying their names and stuff. And I was watching at home in my parents' basement.
man, how did you
and I was
feel?
like brewing on that, but
Oh man, dude.
at the
Not to
same
bring up
time-
an old thing, but it's like that moment. Must
yeah,
have
that
been
was
like,
a tough one,
oh,
but it all worked out.
that's awesome. Well, that's not awesome, but it's kind of like it's cool that you can look back at it now. Because a lot of people sometimes when those moments happen, they're like they stay in that moment
yeah.
and they never fucking leave it. You know what I mean?
And I definitely was like, oh, I've got like my big fear in leaving was like, I just did this like hugely successful project and I left, and now I didn't leave with a plan. I didn't leave with a backup anything. I was just like, fuck this, I'm out. I could swear on this show.
You can say
I've said it.
whatever
Okay.
the fuck you want.
So I just left and was like, oh shit, what now? Like I have one swing. That was my mentality. It was like I have one swing now to follow it up. And I remember producing this like silly clip show where we would just watch like web videos, and I'd have like friends come on and react and stuff, like ridiculousness style, but a web show. And it was fun, but like it didn't do well and it bombed. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm ruined. And then I was like, okay, well, if that didn't work, like I could try one more thing with the momentum
There's
that I
always
have.
this one more idea.
And like, it takes 20 things to fail before you realize that like, oh yeah, I have an unlimited amount of swings, and the degree of success on each swing is gonna vary on each one. And it might not be the same as the Epic Mealtime, which was like one of my first ones. But yeah, I've taken plenty of swings since then that have like reached similar marks or have surpassed it in some cases.
Wow. And so, do you feel like now the definition of success has changed over all these years for you?
Yeah, I think so. I always say I'm the most successful person I know because like I enjoy everything I do. I'm fulfilled. I'm passionate about it. I feel like I'm happy with my life and what I'm up to. So I feel like super successful. Obviously, you always want to make more, and there's always more to do, and there's always where to you don't want to get content with anything. But yeah, I feel super successful.
Well, it's fun you say that because a lot of people over time, and I'm in the same boat. I feel very similar. I feel there's a lot of stuff that you said that I can really resonate or relate to because I don't know why we always think that there's one swing only.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand this idea. And I'm sure we're not the only two people in the world that think this way. I'm sure most people think that there's this, like, whether it's good or bad, if you've been successful, oh, I only have one more chance. If it's bad, I only have one more. It's this one more chance mentality. And I'm not sure, where it stems from, that we're all conditioned in this idea that it's only like this one shot.
Yeah.
One shot, and that's it. Like, life ends if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I'm realistically, I'd say, I don't know, just ballparking, there's been maybe 7 projects that I've worked on that I would deem like a successful project, and probably 93 failures. So like my success rate's like a 7%. But to anyone I'm talking to, 7 successful projects at age 35 is like pretty good.
Dude, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you even had one.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that's where that mentality of the one shot.
Yeah.
It's like you only have one shot, but it's like you one hit
Yeah.
maybe,
It's
but not one shot.
Exactly. It's a weird feeling now with a very serious show is like some of the clips are starting to get like millions of views and stuff. And it's a very different feeling than when I was feeling this with Epic Mealtime because I was young and it was like, holy shit, I'm made now. Like I'm about to blow up and this is crazy and I'm getting all these views and I'm going to be this forever. And now like a decade after, getting similar kind of views now, there's like a humility to it. Like, I know this isn't what I think it is, and I know it's just another project, and I enjoy it, and I want to do it and make it as big as possible and do it for as long as I can. But there's going to be a next project after it, and there's going to be more after that.
It's almost like you went through a divorce.
Kind of. To take the valuable learnings from it. Yeah.
Dude, because it's like when you get married, you don't think you're going to get divorced.
Exactly.
But then when it happens, or if it happens, you're kind of like, oh my God, this thing that I thought that would last forever didn't.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an eye opener, but I'm still alive. Like, it's not like I died when this happened, right? Like, it ended. It's like you figure life without this project or without this person.
Exactly.
It's finished. And then you realize it's like, no, dude, it's just a project that ended.
And I think that's a good approach to like relationships also, is like, be happy in them, but don't be like,
Assume it's
be
gonna
happy
be
out of
forever.
them too.
Yeah. And almost like the idea that if it does end, it's okay. It's meant to end,
Yeah, like, I'm in a relationship right now, and I don't
listen to
no. It's a good point, because I'm confident in this current relationship because I'm not worried about not being in it. Like, if suddenly something drastic happened and we split up, my life's still great.
Exactly. It's so funny. Same with my girlfriend. I said it, and she looked at me like I was a psychopath. I'm like,
Yeah, it's a little insulting.
Yeah,
to the
it's
person
like
to
it's
hear,
a weird.
but
It's a weird.
It's a
thing.
compliment.
I mean it in like the nicest way possible. I'm
Yeah.
like, who I am at 40 doesn't necessarily mean is like who we are at 40, or she's 37, I'm 40. No, you might not be the same person in 10 years, and I might not be the same person in 10 years. So it's like we don't know what we're gonna be like in 10 years. So to assume that it's forever, no matter what, it's not a question of saying, oh, so everything's gonna end. But maybe it might end, and if it does, and you go your way and you're happy, and I go, that's okay. We had a great relationship for 10 years or whatever it is, And people look at these things, I find, in like it has to be forever to make it special,
Yeah. I mean, I hope it goes as long as you can. You go as
Exactly.
long as you can, but being conscious of when it's not serving you anymore.
Well, yeah,
and doing
and
something about it.
recognize
That's how I felt with a lot of projects.
Yeah, dude. So it's like when you're, and I find work and relationships in general, it's the same thing. Like, you fall in love with a project, you become obsessed with the project, you work on it, and you want to make it as good as possible. And it's a relationship that you kind of build with this thing. So it's like, for a very serious show, I see you put in the time in it. Like, the set is amazing. There's constant guests. Like, it's getting better and better.
Thank
like
you.
as the weeks go by, and I could see, like you were saying, you're getting more and more comfortable even in that role.
Yeah.
And so for you now, like with all these projects because we talked about the art, we talked about the show. I know there's other projects. I don't know if you want to touch on them, or if there was something else in specific, or do you want to talk about like maybe the future of where you see this show going, or whatever you want to go.
Okay, so I'll give you like a quick rundown of what I'd like my future to look like.
Yeah, let's hear
I've
this.
spent a lot of time thinking about this. I'm all about vision boards and
Yeah,
manifesting
dude,
and all
I
that.
fucking love that stuff.
So like, I could give you the game plan. We could check back in a few years, and I doubt it'll be this, but it'll
Probably
be something
not.
cool.
Yeah.
I want to keep doing content with Manyvids as long as I can, as long as they're down to work with me. I love doing a very serious show. I'm excited about the comedy club. I've pitched them some other ideas that we might start talking about soon. I want to hopefully bring other people onto the platform to create more and more comedy content, and kind of ideally oversee that a little bit. So on a work side, very happy with it, riding it as long as I can. On the other side, which kind of, there's some overlap, but my personal art stuff, and then like I mentioned before, I'm really gung-ho about this like creative wellness concept. I don't have anything concrete yet, but that's sort of what my brain's been stuck on the last couple of months. So I'm thinking about like ways to make content around it, I'm thinking of maybe doing a newsletter, writing about it more. Ideally, my 5-year plan is to build that brand to a point where it requires a space, and have like this. Now we're talking like dream scenario.
Yeah.
I want to run a creative retreat.
That's
I want
amazing.
creatives to come here, like you said, like just bring a notepad, put your feet in the sand or in the grass or whatever. I think the value of that's going to go up and up and up the more technology and AI starts taking over more of the world. I want to get some land somewhere quiet and build a space where you can come disconnect and create and tune into that connection with that creative spirit, whatever it is.
Dude, that sounds like a fucking great place, because
Yeah.
that trip that I just had was specifically what you said. It was to give me some time to think, like think about the future, but think about today. Think about where I feel happiest, where I feel like I want to connect more with myself on a creative side, and not lose that part with all, like you were saying, all the technology, all the stuff that comes at us.
Totally. And
Becomes
you're
so
just
robotic,
bombarded.
dude. We become so robotic of waking up, go to this, do that, come eat, eat at this time, do this shit,
Yeah.
be exhausted, go to bed, and you kind of like run this ritual of exhaustion.
Yeah.
And you never take that step back to say, okay, like there's something most likely I'm good at. Just not naturally, but it's like I find in one way it's natural where you just kind of listen to your gut and your gut guides you there. And that's like what people say, oh, it's a natural ability, or I feel like that it's not that it's your gut is kind of directing you.
For sure, yeah.
And then like with practice, you become really good at it.
Yeah.
But not having the time to practice, because you're fucking jammed with so many things, makes it impossible for your gut to actually open up a bit and just say like, hey, can you leave me some time to fuck around and figure out what I like doing,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. To practice your intuition a little bit. And not like, there's rest and recharge. And then there's like actual meditation and like clearing your head. And then there's actually like thinking and brainstorming and like coming up with ideas. Yeah. You need a lot of that time. So yeah, I want to make a space that like you can come to. I want, full sauna, full creative space, full
awesome,
like,
man.
Yeah, that's the dream. That's what I'm working on.
You mentioned something 5 years, like before, like kind of maybe coming towards the end of it, but you mentioned a vision board or like a 5-year plan, and you have done this in the past. I could tell by the way you're talking about this, because I'm a fucking dude. I don't understand how you don't put up some sort of thing in the air to say, this is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, man.
And then things always fuck up along the way.
Sure.
And then you actually end in areas or places you never thought you would. But you start off with a vision. I really believe in that. And it sounds like you kind of had that for a while now. So when did you really start having like that vision concept and then working towards a vision? And did that really make a big difference for you?
Yeah, there's such value to like seeing it and hearing it and repeating it. And I'll vision board, I write mantras and stick them all over the place. Like I think we as human beings are so much more programmable than we realize. Mm-hmm. Like it just takes repetition and focus. And when they say like doing the work, it's just because it actually takes reminding yourself and correcting things and focusing on it. When did I start? I would say like I had one of those, typical late 20s breakup, get into some psychedelics. I feel like that's not a uncommon story.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that kind of phase, I started going to therapy. I picked up meditating, started journaling, and that just led to I do all kinds of self-care practices now.
Dude, was therapy not one of the best decisions you ever made in your life?
Yeah.
Dude, the first time I went to go see a therapist, I said, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
I remember I was like 2015-ish the first time I went. So it was still like
same around then.
And like I was like 32 or something like that. Yeah, 2015, 32. And I walked in there and I was so reluctant and so like resisting of this concept. I don't know why. I was like, oh, what the fuck, this is a bitch gonna fucking help me with, you know what I mean? And it was like, that was the first thing. It's like, I'm pissed because I'm going through a divorce. Like, I'm fucking mad at her or whatever it is, for no reason. And I'm like, oh, now I gotta talk about all this shit. And then all of a sudden when we started talking about it, I was like, I finally had like an outlet to just like spew my shit from my brain. And I didn't realize how much shit there was.
For sure. And then when you start to feel the difference, same with like, if you go to the gym once or twice, you're just going to feel sore and be pissed off.
Yeah.
But once you start to see like, oh, my clothes are fitting different, and I maybe have an ab, like then you get really addicted to the gym. Same thing with therapy. Like when you start to feel the impact, you get like addicted to self-improvement.
Yeah.
To the point where like my last session, I told I'm working with a new therapist now, and I told her like my biggest thing is like, I miss the days of feeling like every session was like a huge leap forward.
I know.
I need more to work on now.
Dude, are we fucking like, are we like soul brothers or something? I literally thought the exact same thing. I had a session 2 months ago because at one point I used to go like once every 2 weeks or once a month. And now I'm kind of at like once every 2 months to kind of just keep the muscle flowing, you know? I feel that's
And when you're feeling good, you don't need it, quote unquote, but like,
but you need it, and you realize when you finish it, you're like, I don't know if I really needed this one now, and
yeah,
I'm feeling like I didn't gain that revelation or that breakthrough
yeah,
that I would be getting consistently in the past.
yeah,
And then you start questioning, like, is it worth still going? And then you're kind of like, dude, that's how you like get quote unquote lazy on your
yeah,
brain. And that's where the shit's gonna kick in.
yeah,
And don't think it's not like a muscle, like you had said,
exactly,
where if I stop going to the gym, it's gonna get weak. It's gonna get
exactly.
weak. So this is my gym session
Yeah.
that if sometimes I didn't get
And
anything physically out of it, or I didn't see the impact, but there is an impact. It's just I don't
yeah.
know when it's gonna help me.
And it's the same. We were talking about like our shows before. If everything's going well and there's nothing to improve, something that's not true and something's wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think approaching it from the sense like there's been sessions where it'll end and I'm like, oh, I just wasted, $150 venting for an hour and
Yeah.
telling her about my week.
Yeah.
Those are like the less useful ones, I'll say. But then there's ones where it's like, yo, I've identified this, or I'm trying to identify something and then figure out ways to work on it and getting tools and practicing things. And there's always more to do, but that searching for it's its own game.
There was one session, I'll never forget. He mentioned something to me that has stuck with me, and this is like 2 years ago. And I don't remember what. How was I think it was. I wasn't happy. Like I was like, fuck everything I was doing. I was just like, I could feel that. No love. It was just doing it for doing it, but there was no love in anything. And he looked at me and he's like, "Have you ever heard of Picasso's blue period?" And I'm like, the fuck is Picasso's blue period? He's like, grab your phone right now. Look at Picasso's blue period. So I open it up. Dude, it is the most depressing paintwork.
Yeah.
Like artwork. You can look, everyone's blues and grays and heads are down and it's fucking it's really it's sad, man, to look at this. But it's so beautifully done.
Right.
I'm like, it is so, I loved it. I just looked at every piece. I'm like, oh my God, how many pieces did he fucking produce in this? Like this blue period. And I don't remember why he was so depressed. I think it was the stories that someone had committed suicide or someone had tragically died or something like that, and it really affected him. And instead of not working, he said, I'm going to use my art to let go of all this pain that I'm going through.
Yeah.
And he created all of this art in his darkest period of his life.
Yeah.
And I think it was over 20 pieces, like 23 pieces. And so he looked at me and he's like, you could be down and you could be, not doing well and not feeling well and not thinking well in the right spot. He's like, but you can leverage that to produce some of the best things in your life. So he's like, how you perceive this moment in your life. And I remember that fucking conversation. I'm talking, it's like a good 2 years ago. It still resonates that every time you feel something creeping in that maybe you're not so happy. And
yeah,
I'm like, dude, this could be your blue period.
For sure.
This could be your, and it's like, I just say that word to myself. And
Those
I'm like,
are so valuable.
Period. Yeah.
That's where the learnings are. That's where everything, like for you as a person too, like the bad times are the best times.
In hindsight, it's always the best times. But in that
for,
moment,
for
you're like,
growth and for learning and for working on stuff and for improvement. Like I said before, like I love my life. I'm a very happy person, but there's at least 2 to 10 days a year where I'm like, I'm either sad or annoyed or pissed off, and I'm having those days. And I'm always, if ever I catch that, I'm gotten better at this, at being grateful for that.
You know what I tell myself now when I catch those moments? Just don't let it last too long.
Yeah.
Like it's not like before it was like, I don't want to feel this ever again. And now it's like when it comes, just you have enough tools now to help you recognize that it's a moment and not it's a passerby. It's not someone that's living with you right now.
Yeah, I like the 5x5 rule. If it's not gonna matter in 5 years, it's not worth more than 5 minutes of frustration.
Oh fuck! I never heard that one. I give my shit. I'm gonna give shit to my therapist. What the fuck, dude?
Maybe I made that up. I don't know. I sometimes just be saying shit.
Man, but I'm really excited though about like a lot of the stuff. One, getting to meet you finally, because Dan had always spoken so highly of you and said, dude, you got. I think he talked about Epic Meal Times for years.
Yeah,
like 10 years talking about
that. He's probably one of my oldest friends. We know since like grade 1 or kindergarten.
We were doing the competition earlier of how long we've known Dan, and you smoke me like, dude, you've known him since like baby style.
Yeah.
And dude, Dan had talked to me so many times about it. He's like, dude, Tyler, you have to meet Tyler. He would always just say you have to meet Tyler. And then when I started the show, he's like, you have to get Tyler on the show. And dude, I am fucking happy that you came on and getting to know you. And there's so many fun projects that you're working on. I'm wishing you only the best, man. Like, that's awesome. I'm happy you even shared some of the ideas for your future, and that's a sign of like confidence in yourself. And dude, I'm rooting for you, and I'm hoping only the best, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. And same for you. Like,
Thanks,
you've got your own project here that's growing and moving and shaking. It's super exciting. Cool to see.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Hell yeah.
That's it.
Dope.
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for checking out the show. It's been awesome working on this project. And if you like it, tell a friend. And if you want to support the show, you can by 1, subscribing and liking our YouTube channel at the DMW Podcast. 2, you can go to our website and sign up to our mailing list at the dmwpodcast.com. And 3, you can follow us on Instagram at the DMW Podcast. Thanks again for all of your support. My name is Stef, and this is The Dead